Hello, everybody. My name is Zenitsu, and you're listening to the Digi Talks podcast, the show that covers various topics such as news and meta developments and everything in between for the fine folks who love the Digimon trading card game. Just as a quick reminder, I do stream this live over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, and it's also uploaded as a YouTube video under the channel of Zenitsu, on top of being on various podcasting platforms like Spotify for your viewing and listening pleasure. Please feel free to leave a rating, like, follow, subscribe, review, whatever, depending on the platform that you're listening on. It really does help support the podcast. Today, I am back with Jay Stewart, and we are going to be talking about the end of EX7 in terms of where its meta kind of left off, and kind of lean into what to expect at the start of Special Booster 2.0's meta, considering it's a little bit of a wonky meta, because we do in December get a little, like, the LM collection set, whatever it's called, and that's going to shake up the meta come December, so, like, we get a Part A and a Part B, and we're going to be talking about mostly Part A, because Part B is basically going to be Nationals format. I think that's the only big tournament that's going to be taking place during Part B. But, this brings us to, before we actually start talking about the meta and all of the data, because we got a lot of it, let's go to the question of the week. And the big question of the week is going to be, what was your expectation out of Special Booster 2.0 in terms of, like, the card prices that you were anticipating? Because I know the secondary market is a pretty hot topic that some people like to talk about. And this set, with the pull rates now known and booster boxes being open and the floodgates open, we could kind of see and learn from what's going on. So what was your expectations?
Yeah, I think for me, so one of the cards I was expecting to kind of be like, because lately what we've had in the past with a lot of our other sets, like going from BT15 to 16, EX7, and EX6, like we've usually seen an SR card that's been hitting the $20 range, and I was expecting like Lord Numon X anybody to be hitting that, like just the base rarity, or even the Lucamon, like any of the Lucamons, honestly. But surprisingly, it just seems like they haven't been catching on, like especially Lord Numon, because everyone's been talking about how that is potentially the one of the, if not the best decks to come out from this 2.0 for Nats.
Yeah, I definitely was expecting prices to fall. I just wasn't expecting them to fall as much. So I'm going to be like 110% honest. After opening my 4 booster boxes, I, day one, went and bought the majority of the rest of the singles that I was missing. And I 100% regret it, because the prices fell way below what I was expecting. And I kind of have, like, buyer's remorse in a sense because of that, because, like, I literally watched as card prices go as, like, I like the lower prices. This is, like, why I had buyer's remorse, is because I overspent on the cards by a significant margin, because they dropped down way lower than I would have ever anticipated. And I'm, like, both happy and sad. I'm sad because I was stupid, but I'm happy that the set and almost everything inside of it is affordable. Because my brother, one of them, I have 2 brothers, one of them was looking at a new deck because he hasn't played Digimon in a while, and for the most part, Millenniumon was insanely affordable outside of the Cool Boy and the Promo Delta, or not Cool Boy, Analog Youth, and Promo Delta. So we're going to be basically subbing some cards in for those. So instead of like Analog Youth, we're going to be, I think we're running Miss Memory Boost, and instead of Deltamon, we're going to be running like Porcupa or Eismon, Scatter Mode, or just something else. I still got to like test it and figure it out. But like, if he had the Rarebons from the participation stuff from regionals, which I know he doesn't, that's another good card that could go in. So like, there are substitutes that could have been made, and it's just finding them. But for the most part, because everything is like so cheap, like even the secret rares, they dropped like a rock. And like, I get it, these aren't like mandatory 4 of secret rares, but and they're still pretty easy to pull, but I wasn't expecting it to be this low. I was expecting like maybe $5 for the cheapest one and then 15 for the most expensive one, and it fell like everything just fell way below expectation. Um, I think some cards were kind of stable from what I noticed. Like Queen Bee, really from when I bought it day one to what it is now, it literally didn't move. So like certain cards are more resistant to move. I think Shadow Serafi was also kind of like up there. He dropped to like $5-6, and then he's like staying and hovering around like $6-7. So like cards are still kind of in flux and are fighting their proper price point as more product is being open. I just was not expecting this much product and this much of a drop. Like I was expecting the drop, just not this much. So good on 2.0, and we could expect basically the same thing to happen in 2.5. So I will not be making the same mistake twice.
Well, you can't blame yourself for that because, like I said, like practically around the BT15 range, we've seen like a lot of these SR cards like just jump up to like $20 price range, and if you don't buy them then they shoot up to $50 price range. Like if you look at Cherubi Ace or even the Protoform X Antibody, the Lucamon from like just EX6 alone, those cards are like almost 40 above dollars. And I remember I was like looking back, I was like thinking to myself at that time, I'm like, oh, I'll just hold off on getting Cherubi Ace because it seems a little weird that it's a $20 SR and everything. And then I look at it now, it's like, holy crap, it's $40. Why didn't I get it? You know?
Yeah, I
So you
mean,
can't blame yourself.
no, I
You
know.
play safe.
That's why I've been being as hardcore competitive as I possibly can for Event Pack 7, because Event Pack 7 having protoforms in them is like actually goaded. So like I think during the store regional that I participated in, I did end up getting some really good pulls off of my event packs. Let me pull them up really quick, just so I remember exactly what they were. So I placed, before we get into that, I did end up placing ninth at the in person one, and I'll talk about more of that later. But I pulled two Death X's, one X Antibody Protoform, and one Sistermon. Sistermon Blanc. So, like, that's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, but that's why good pricing is like super important because it really incentivizes us to want to go and play.
Yeah, because I know I've only been able to participate in two like in person regionals, so to say. The one that was in the what is it? The Shawnee, Kansas area. And I know we were all talking about that. Like, we're like, dang, if only we had Event Pack 7. And the only other time I had access to try to get Event Pack 7 was the Iowa Store Regionals for that one. So I'm not complaining that, I didn't get anything good. I got but just Event Pack 7's like a really good event pack, it seems like, in a long time.
I would actually agree with that. Like, we have not had an event pack this stacked, and even the regional participation like prizes are like extra stacked compared to in the past. Like, we probably had really subpar and mediocre tournament prizing for probably a at least a year, I know, if not a little bit longer. So that was definitely a good shakeup on what they were doing with this recent wave of stuff. Because, like, just my friend who played, he's not super huge into Digimon. That's more of a casual game for him. But he was chasing the Venusmons, and he was able to get his playset just from people. So that was pretty cool to see him, like, oh, I want to bling out my Venusmons in my deck. So
Yeah. Also, I apologize if you hear a squeaker in the background. My dog is just really wanting to play right now, so I apologize on that.
you're good. Puppies or doggies are good. I love dogs. Um, but yeah, so I guess transitioning into the end of EX7, we finally have all of the data from EX7. Like all of it is in. There's no more EX7 events. EX7 is officially over, and we could not necessarily talk about it in big picture. I'm going to be making a YouTube video like I always do about like the actual big picture, but we could still like send it off in the podcast way. So we got essentially 3 events to look at. The majority of the data is really not going to be interesting as far as like what the meta was changing to be, because it really wasn't changing. So just to kind of go over things really quickly, I guess I'll start with 401 games, because I did participate in that. I don't remember how well I did. It wasn't that great. I think I know I made top 128. So I know I did that because I went 5-3 because that event was 8 rounds. But as far as the actual breakdown, as far as the deck that won, it was Mirage with the Galaxy engine. That's what won the event. And then as far as the rest of the archetype breakdown, it was 5 Imperial, 3 Mirages in total. 2 of them were Galaxy engine Mirages. Then there was 3 Leviamon X, 2 Fenrir Lucamon, 2 Magnamon X, and 1 Ancient Greymon. So that was 401 games in a nutshell. And then as far as... So literally nothing new has topped with that event. And then when we go to Play TCG, this was the Dallas in-person regional. That was also 8 rounds. And as far as the top 16 archetype breakdown, it was 3 Ancient Garus, 2 Mirages, 2 Levias, 2 Mother Controls, 2 Phoenixes, like Phoenix X, 2 Fenris, 1 7 Great Demon Lord, 1 Magnamon, and 1 Numemon. And the winner of that event was a 7 Great Demon Lords. So cool on that. And as far as the new deck that was able to break into the meta, it was a new iteration on Numemon, which I always knew Numemon still had the potential to go the distance. It just needed more refinement, and I don't know if this is actually the way, but it is a way. So if anyone's curious, I'm pulling up the Numemon list, and they are using purple base. So they swap back to purple base. So they have access to Psyche and Gazi as their floodgates, Gabumon from the starter deck just to move out and gain a memory because gaining a memory for free is broken. And then they're running 5 Ukomons, and their eggs are Demi-Meramon from BT16, so that way they discard a level 5 or higher and draw 2. And then Cupimon, discard a card to gain a memory. So that way they could just, fill up the trash faster and then gain more memory or draw more cards. Then the level 4s is exactly what we would expect. It's the 1 Numemon X, followed by 4 Numemon BT14, 4 Jerry BT11, and 3 RB1 Numemon. So, all Numemon. And the level 5s is where things get a little bit interesting. So they are running a larger level 5 suites than I would have expected. So they're running 1 Black King Numemon, which is basically like Numemon X Antibody, except not as good. It does have an on-delete to basically play out the level 6 for free. So it's pretty good. It's actually the on-delete reveal the top 3, and then add 1 card with Numemon or with Monzemon from your hand among them, and then 1 card with Numemon, and then the rest. Oh, I guess it's not playing a Digimon for free. What was I thinking of then? Whatever. They're running the Monzemon suite, which is the RB1 Monzemon with the BT15 Monzemon X, and then they're spicing it up with the BT14 Monzemon and the BT15 Waru Monzemon. Waru's pretty good just because the D-Digivolve is super relevant. And then I'm just curious on why the BT14 Monzemon. I probably would have just ran more Edamons or maybe Black King Numas, but I guess if it works, it works. Then their level 6s is just, good stuff. Level 6. Valkyrie, Mega Gargo, Sindril, and Platinum. And then they have 0 options outside of 1 Protoform, and then they're running 3 Satskis. So I don't know if that's the way, but it worked for them.
I am
Um,
kind of surprised that they aren't even at least running a Louis, because that is just really good for the deck and everything too.
I think it's because they're just so high on the level fives. Like they are basically just trying to be a level five deck. Like it that's kind of the direction it feels like. It's let me be a level five deck, have a couple of good ace bait targets, and then kind of just play out a level six casually. Like, I don't know. I'd have to see the deck in action and the overall flow on how it works, but like I do think Numon is not a bad deck. It just needs the iteration, and as we've kind of learned in Digimon, most people do not feel like putting the time or effort into the iteration to be able to make something that should still be good actually good in regards to when cards get banned and limited. Um, and then so that's play TCG, and then going over to uh, what was it? No Heroes. So No Heroes was another 8 round event, and the archetype breakdown is as follows: 4 Mirages, 3 Yellow Vaccine. They were actually all Dominimons for like actually a surprise. Then 2 Imperials, 2 Ancient Garus, 1 Fen, 1 Leviathan, 1 Rapidmon, 1 Tyrant, and 1 D Brigade. So that's pretty. Like, there's a lot of decks that we haven't really seen there, and I don't know if it's literally just the region that doesn't like that just decided to not play good decks, or if like bad people were on good decks. I'm not entirely sure what the reason is, but this one was definitely a more standout event in terms of the actual report. As far as what actually won, compared to like as that archetype breakdown is as followed, Fenry won the event, which really isn't a surprise, seeing a higher tier meta deck be able to trounce some mid to lower tier, like more casual for fun decks that haven't been doing well in this meta. But I guess we could take a look at Commandramon or D Brigades, because that's a deck we haven't really seen in a hot minute. And I mean, good reasons, but it's nice to see that somebody was able to do well with it. They are running the like more of a classic style. They're not playing into Darkdramon. Instead, they're just running Vikemon as like their alternative level 6. So they're just all D Brigade Swarm for the most part. So nothing really like too crazy out of this deck outside of maybe Quartzmon as like an unusual level 7. But if you're swarming, then like it kind of just is fine. Um, yeah, outside of that, like nothing's really that big of a surprise. Like the big thing that D Brigades has going for it is the protections. Like if they literally don't have Source Strip, then the protections could be absolutely obnoxious. I mean, Digivolve also gets around their protections, sort of. But the other big thing is the fact that this deck does have a good amount of Digivolve, which is right now the best form of soft removal in the entire game. Um, so cool on D Brigade for doing well. Then Yellow Vaccine, I'll just bring up for like a hot second because it's Yellow Vaccine Dominimon. I really don't know what to say. They're not really. The only thing that they're kind of doing different is they're splashing in Rapidmons to try to use as a free evolution off of Patamon because it is just that good. Plus, the DP boost isn't bad on its inheritable. I'm talking about the starter deck Rapidmon, um, the armor one, and then outside of that, it's literally just everything we've kind of been seeing already, like good level 5 aces. Then you have good level 6 aces. You're just playing Dominimon and hoping everything doesn't die. That's basically the deck in a nutshell. And 3 of them managed to top at this event. But going over like some of the more interesting aspects of it, we do actually have limitless data, and I'm gonna not go over everything, but I kind of want to use it to highlight a point with the D Brigade as the example. So D Brigade player went 6-2, and people would probably wonder, well, how did D Brigade actually manage to top? And thanks to Limitless, we actually can kind of answer that question in a sense. So as far as like how D Brigade managed to top, you could see like the opponent's scores. So like their round one, they ended up losing to Imperial, which went 4-4 in the end. Round two, they lost to Rapidmon, which was one of the other top 16 decks. That Rapidmon went 6-3. Um, which is weird, but okay. Then they beat Tyrant, which, yeah, if they see DCD Bomb, like, Tyrant's a pretty free match. They beat Shine Greymon, which again, Digivolve and the protections make it kind of not really a free match, but it makes it significantly difficult knowing that they can't easily remove your stuff. Although I would think Shine would be okay because they could at least DP minus to Oblivion, and then they can't protect against it. Then they beat Adorbicmon, which is an off-meta deck. I think the Swarm and Pressure and the defensive capabilities that D Brigade has, like all in one, just make that kind of an easy matchup. They beat a 7 Great Demon Lords. They beat a Mirage, which I think would be... As long as the Mirage wasn't playing Source Strip, then it would be a difficult matchup. And then they beat Yellow Hybrids, like actual Yellow Hybrids, not like Purple-Yellow Hybrids. So, like, you could kind of see, like, based on the opponent's scores, like, they didn't face that strong of opponents, and the majority of the matchups were kind of in their favor. As long as they literally just didn't see blue or, like, hardcore yellow DP reduction, they were probably just golden. And that's probably what happened to at least help the deck be able to top more. So that's kind of just a little snippet on, like, how matchups do matter a lot on top of, like, are your opponents actually good? That does translate into success a little bit more than like actual hard skill and talent, which is unfortunate. Which is why the meta is the way it is currently, is because like there's only a select few decks that have the answers to be able to beat the majority of these things. So like I think if the D Brigade person ended up facing a Magnamon, I think they would be hosed. Like they would actually be hosed. There was no way that D Brigades can even win that matchup. It's like comedically sad. Well, they can if they build up a good enough of a defense, but Magnamon can do it so early, and D Brigades kind of can't. So, but that's just my 2 cents into that type of window into the meta. So that is EX7 in a nutshell, and I do have a little bit of more meta insight before we swap over to talking about Special Booster 2.0. So is there any kind of like other insight that you're thinking about, Jay Stewart, when it comes to the EX7 meta environment?
I mean, it's kind of been the same as it has been, with just like a few decks just sneaking in at the little bit of the last minute kind of thing. But I will say, one thing I really appreciate about Limitless is the fact that we can actually see how decks got to where they were and everything, because we normally don't really see that kind of stuff, and it kind of helps explains how sometimes these one of decks sometimes make top 16, which gives better insight, like you were kind of saying.
Yeah, and Limitless also gives us like the actual meta breakdown, even though sometimes when they label decks it's labeled incorrectly. It's still like if you just go in and you start clicking stuff, you can put together yourself the bigger picture, and I think that type of data it's so valuable. And I wish we would use it more, in more places would use it more, so that way it could actually aggregate better data, but it is just what it is. So in case people are wondering what the meta actually looks like, the meta has been going through a consolidation phase where we've basically been stale and stagnant for the past like 2-3 sets, which is not a good spot to be in my perspective. So right now, Imperial is the best deck. Based on all of the top 16s that we have access to, Imperial just is the best deck. It's not the best deck by a large margin, but it is the best deck. And then as far as number 2 and number 3, that goes to Ancient Garurumon is the second best deck, and Mirage is the third best deck. So all blue decks are topping. Some shocker, I know. And then the other interesting thing is when we go into what is the number 4, 5, and 6 deck, it's all purple. So we have Levia being the fourth best deck, Fen being the fifth, and Seven Great Demon Lords being the sixth. Technically, Fen, Levia, and Seven Great Demon Lords all have the same like percentage and representation in top 16. So realistically, I'd have to I could probably reorganize that better, but that they all share basically the same slot as 4, 5, and 6. And then when it comes to 7 and 8, it goes Magnum on X is the seventh best deck, and then Dex Duragora is the eighth best deck. And then kind of anything outside of that has really had a hard time topping. The best ones that topped outside of that is literally Mother Control, Yellow Vaccines, more specifically the armor variant. But if you want to include Numon, then yes, that kind of does prop Yellow Vaccines as a whole up a little bit more. I think Numon's doing like a little bit too different of things. It's just using the Patamon engine. But outside of that, we have Ancient Greymon and Omnimon Ace have been kind of there as well. So that's basically all of the meta playable decks, and anything that's been outside of that has literally been fighting for the scraps in terms of being able to top. And like you could say, like, yeah, that's like 11 decks that I listed. That's pretty good. And here I am kind of confirming that like it is kind of good, but at this, because we do have every single playstyle covered. Like between those 11 decks that I listed, we do have literally every single playstyle covered. The only problem is that's the only thing, like literally those are the only things that are viable outside of get lucky and find the RNG to get into top 16. So that's kind of where we stand with EX7. And if anyone's actually curious on like a little bit more of a deep dive, Dex in Purple has proven to be better than Dex in Black. Dex in Black is more anti-meta. Dex in Purple is like, hey, I'm just going for raw speed and power. Then when it comes to the Ancient Gurus, Red base has appeared more than Blue base. They're pretty close to even, but Red has topped more. I think Red just gives you more offensive tools, and then right now it definitely gives you the better floodgates. Then when it comes to Mirage, base Mirage is outperformed by a large margin Galaxy loop, like the Galaxy engine. So staying simple is sometimes better than trying to be overly complicated for like borderline no real reason. So that's kind of the last bit of EX7 metadata I want to give insight for, because I am going to be doing a big like YouTube breakdown. So we can kind of use this as like a launching point into Special Booster 2.0. At least like part A is kind of what I'm going to call it, because we do have a tiny bit of metadata from the few events that we're able to ran. Have you played any Special Booster 2.0 at locals?
I have not yet. Unfortunately, my locals isn't until Thursday, so tomorrow. So I haven't really had the chance to actually try to play. But usually, anytime after a set comes out, I typically wait a week anyways after, just because I'm trying to collect my cards. I want to try to build the decks and understand and everything how they work too. So I don't think I'll be able to play this week, but after that, I'll be good to go, and I'll should have at least play tested something.
Yeah, I gotcha. I've said earlier that I played in a store regional. So I played at the Legends store regional, and I got ninth place. It was out of 24 players. The event, funny enough, had over 100 people sign up, but I think literally because of the wonkiness on how Bandai was doing the signups for this one, it kind of like pseudo self-sabotaged the event, because nobody actually knew like how big the wait list is, and if people had to drive out like 2 hours to say you can't play in this, that's just a big turnoff. So I think like a lot of people just registered just to register, and then like if they really wanted to take that risk, then they traveled out. But I signed up early enough where I got in, and that was not an issue. And one of my friends who I was staying at over in Grand Rapids, bless his heart, thank you, Mark. he was able to play as well, and he wasn't even expecting to play. So it was a like there's something magical about in-person events, I will have to say. Like, I don't discredit anyone who just wants to only do in-person events. It is a lot harder to actually, you know, get the results that you need, because you do sometimes need to grind those tournaments. But like, it's just way more fun, and it's such a different atmosphere.
Yeah, because I know there's another store regionals that's in Kansas that's coming up like a couple weeks and everything. I did sign up for it, and I did technically get in. I would have loved to have gone, but unfortunately, work circumstances kind of per- doesn't allow me to leave this time around. And I'm like, well, unfortunately, I'm not going to go because I knew if I didn't get in from the invite, it's like a almost a 4 hour drive. It's like almost the same distance for that Iowa one I took, but I felt more comfortable taking a risk with a 64 count than I would have with a 32 count.
Yeah, because it's weird, because the event that I played in was capped at 32. So I was just like, okay, we could have had 64, and with 100 people registered, that would have probably gave people more hope to want to go out to it. And there definitely was enough space at the store to hold 64, like, very comfortably. But like, as I was talking with the store owner and the TO there, um, they kind of said like maybe this was just Bandai testing the waters on being able to do more store tournaments by lowering the cap. So because they only printed X amount of prizing. So I don't know exactly what it is. I'm not in Bandai's shoes, and I can't predict what they've done, or why they're doing things, because they're really weird on why they do things sometimes. But like, hey, if it means in the future we could get more store regionals for having a lower cap, like, I think that's kind of worth the trade off.
Yeah, because I know if they do like I'm fine with 64, but if they want to do 32 and do more more stores regionals than they can do with 64, I'd be down with that too. In all fairness.
Yeah, and I don't know like what kind of special rules they have when it comes to like what size event needs what type of players to get what level of prizing, because I don't know if second place, theoretically they should have gotten their invite, the person who got second at the store regional I went to, but because like the wording on the website, I'd have to ask like, hey, did you check your Bandai app to see if you got your invite. Sometimes it takes a little bit, so because I wouldn't mind having a travel buddy, because they are from my locals. The person who got second, the person who got first was not. He was local to the GR area. But just as a quick overview in terms of that event, the one that I participated in, the winner of the event was a 2.0 legal event. Um, and the winner was Lord Nightmon. Second place was Ancient Guru. Third place was Purple Hybrids. Fourth place was Dexter Goromon. Fifth place was Imperial. Sixth place was Magnamon. Seventh was Diaboromon, and eighth was Dorogoromon. And then I obviously got ninth place. 11th place was Ancient Guru, and um, that was 10th place, and 11th place was Machine Dramon, and we all had the same record as a good number of people that made it into top 8 at X and 2. So it is just unfortunate that due to tiebreakers, I bubbled out, like, literally, and that's like where something like a Diaboromon was able to get higher was because of the tiebreakers. And it's cool that Diaboromon made it into top 8, but usually, as we kind of seen in past trends, it's easier to top when there's less competition. So like that's why in Japan you see like some really weird and wonky stuff be able to get first, is because usually that's just a local, like literally a locals 8-man event. Like of course something weird is going to top every now and then. Like there's not that much competition in order to like really hold it back. I think like the longer an event goes, the more competitive and consistent decks need to be in order to prove that they can actually go the distance rather than, oh, I just got lucky and my opponent bricked. Because going over my matches, because I did write those down. Let me pull that up. Was it here? Yeah, so round one, I played against the Ancient Gurumon player that got second place. I lost game one due to floodgates locking me out of a lot of my good plays. And then game two, I lost because all my level sixes were at the bottom of the deck. So what I was playing Mirage, just as a frame of reference, I was playing Mirage, and like when you lose because all of your level sixes are at the bottom, like that's a game you know you're never gonna win, and it just sucks to just kind of try to dig, and do nothing but dig while the opponent's just beating you down in the face. So that was unfortunate there. Round two, I faced my friend Mark. He was on the Shakamon deck that I previewed on YouTube, and he's not like super hardcore competitive. So I kind of just beat him because I knew how to play around the deck, and he didn't know exactly the more optimal play lines to be able to stall out the game to get it so he could win. And that was unfortunate for him because he was still learning the deck, and he made a lot of misplays that of games he probably could have won due to poor prioritization on card ordering and what to do. So like that goes to show, like, I'm only highlighting this not to like insult my friend because he doesn't play Digimon nearly as much as I do, but it does go to show that there is actually some skill involved in what you're able to do and how you're able to do things. But Shakamon's just such a fun deck. And it's not like the opponents were unwinnable matchups. It's just he didn't exactly play the deck to how it needed to. Then round three, I lost to Diabormon. That was a really close game because, like, it was a back and forth in terms of games. Like, we traded game after game. So it's like he won one, I won one, and then he ended up winning. Really fun. But I lost game one because I bricked. Can't do that, especially against Diabormon when they could just magically have 7 bodies on board off of nothing. So can't do that. And then I OTK'd him game two, bypassing his defenses and just, swinging at his security a lot. And then game three, I made a misplay, and that costed me the game because I moved out of raising too early, and for whatever reason, he just never had cards in his hand. I don't know how he magically only ever had 4 cards in his hand at any given point, but that's one way to kind of beat Mirage is don't have cards in hand. It makes it very difficult for us to gain as much memory as we want because we at least need to gain 2, and that's like the math that we base a lot of our plays on. And if you're able to keep your hand low, you could win. Like, I kind of know how they did it, but like I'm still surprised that they just didn't even acknowledge that that's what they were doing. Not that it was like their fault for playing towards my deck's weakness on hand size, but he was just shocked. He's just like, I don't know how I had this few hit cards either. But essentially, the TLDR was he was playing Tamers and he was hard slamming higher level Digimon. Because once you start generating the tokens, Diabormon could literally just hard slam an Evo and it reduces the amount of cards you're drawing. So that was kind of cool. Round 4 for me was Devas. It was like Mother Shoto Devas, and I just OTK'd them. Like, I bounced their level 5s, and then they didn't have any defenses, and what defenses they did have with Mother Shoto, I bypassed because I'm blockable. So that was a pretty easy win there because Deva's big weakness is they have lots of on-delete effects that I'm not triggering on their level 6s. Then the last round was Magna, and I just out tempoed them. And again, Unblockable is just god tier. Like, it's so good to just say, yeah, that's a cute blocker. You can't do anything. So that was how I won round 5. Was I just outpaced them twice in a row. So that was kind of neat in terms of like what people were playing. There was a decent amount of Imperial, a little bit of Lord Nightmon, a little bit of Machine Dramon, a good amount of Ancient Guru, Magnamon, Durugoramon. There was a Zephica, a Diaboramon, a Fenry, a Mirage, a Purple Hybrid, a Red Hybrid. So like there was a decent spread, but the majority of the decks that were played for the most part were mostly known already competitive decks, and then you just had a couple of outliers in the mix to kind of just shake things up a little bit. So that brings us to the little bit of data that we got for 2.0. I'm just pulling it up right now. There we go. All right, so 2.0 data. We don't have a lot, but we do have 2 Eagle's Nest events, and I'm not like really gonna go into them. You could kind of, because they're smaller events. So just like my store regional, I don't really put a whole lot of weight into them. But like what I do like about them is the fact that we do have something to kind of gauge like what's good and what people are interested in playing in. So if anyone's actually curious, I'll just click on the first Eagle's Nest. Oh, we don't have the full breakdown? Rude. But basically, people right now are interested in playing Lord Nightmon, Magnamon, Ancient decks, Hybrid decks, Lucimon, Fenry. Like, really, it's all just the same stuff, just Lord Nightmon added to the mix, to be honest. Like, I really don't see, like, Lucimon and Millenniumon, because they're part purple, they do have the capabilities to be more competitive, but the TLDR is Lord Nightmon hybrids are like the 2 best things to come out of 2.0, as we've kind of already stated before. And purple hybrids and updates to both ancient decks is really what's going to be making the bigger waves compared to just playing what we've already played, because they're just that broken and that good. So that's kind of like the early little meta insight into 2.0 that we can gather based off of the little bit of data that we do have. So, I know we kind of talked, or I kind of talked a lot. So, Jay Stewart, what are your overall thoughts on 2.0 from a more meta perspective? Like, what is your locals planning on playing? Because you probably have a bigger grasp at your locals in terms of like what people are gravitating to.
Yeah, so I think I've said it before, but I'm from the Kansas City area, and in my area, we have at least 5 players who have gotten their entries into regionals, and one of our players, he goes by Dominic, and I know he's made top 16 lots of times. So I know he's looking into the purple hybrid. There's another one who seems like he's wanting to pick up the cards for the Millenniumon deck, it seems like. I'm not sure about the other 3 though, unfortunately, of what they're considering. But most likely, I think what one of them, if not 2 of them, might even potentially try to do, if they are able to go, might be the Mirage decks, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I mean, I I'm still having a hard time figuring out what I want to play, just because I'm still not having fun with the game yet, and so far 2.0 has not increased my amount of fun. Um, but at least like the meta is going to be shaking up a smidge. I don't know by how much, because like I kind of already alluded to, what's going on before December functionally doesn't matter if you're looking at the data to use for nationals, because the December set is when we're going to be getting the scrambles. It's when we're going to get the 2-color memory boosts, and then a good couple of reprints and nice alt arts. So like, just the existence of the scrambles and the memory boosts can change a lot, actually, because of just how the game is so dramatically warped around these staples. Like, they can make already good decks overperform, because that was maybe the missing piece that they needed, or like, it just increases the power ceiling and it favors some more than others. And right now, based on like the overall speed of the game and like where the meta is, it seems like the two most prominent colors is blue and purple. Would you say that's pretty close to accurate?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, blue's like able to swing multiple times and even just manipulating the memory gauge and everything. And purple has always been one of those. Even in the earlier points of the game, it was always considered purple as like the quote unquote. If you used to play Yu-Gi-Oh, you might like purple because that's kind of the idea of what it wants to do. You're not playing one. You're not playing your next turn ahead. You're playing out 2, if not 3 turns ahead because of the trash resource you're able to use. And I would even say that another thing with this side set that's coming out in December, not only are we getting the scramble cards, but we're also getting those quote unquote dual color memory boosts and everything. Because I know there's like a blue and green one where you reveal the top 3, and I think you grab either blue or green, and then you pop it to gain 2 memory. So like
Yeah.
any deck that uses dual colors is that works with those. Because I know there's a purple yellow, which could potentially be stupid good for the purple hybrid, or even Lucamon potentially.
Or
There's
fen.
a black or even Fen, yes. There's even the black and red one. I don't know which deck that might be more leaning to, but it does somewhat kind of. I mean, to me, when I look at that, I go, okay, well, that could potentially go for Machine Dramon because a lot of the sideboard cards they use are black and red, or it could even be used for War Greymon potentially, or Black War Greymon. So, and then I
Yeah.
know there is a blue one that does blue green, which is like, well, that's Imperial just written all over that. And I think there's even a red blue one, so that could even be used for the Omnimon deck potentially, or even the Galaxy Loop deck, or well, Galaxy deck, I should say.
Yeah, there's not all of the color combinations are represented, just because having 6 colors means that there's more than just what's going to be 10. But we get like a good portion of them right now. And like between those and the scrambles, it actually is going to change 2.0 as we know it, because a lot of decks do like the power ceiling is just further raised. Um and it's not like the decks that were bad aren't going to be good because of it. Like the decks that were already good are just getting better, and the decks that were bad just kind of stayed the same level of bad. They're just more playable. So they at least have more potential. But I think like because of where this current state of the game is, I don't think at least the bad decks, or like the lesser decks, are really going to be that much more prominent. I think some of them could be, but which ones I don't exactly know, because of how good uh purple and blue is, and how the game has been warped around the level of speed and consistency that those two colors have. And like you could say that the third color, like the third best color of the game, is probably black, just because it has some of the best soft removal in the game with Digivolve, and it does have a lot of like good protection based cards and a lot of like good anti-meta tech, because it also could remove tamers, and a lot of the prominent stuff is based around tamers. So that's going to be a little bit important, just having the abilities that are needed in order to be competitive, because like red, sorry, outside of literally ancient, red kind of is a dead color. Like if it's red, I can probably ignore it unless it says hybrid. I think that's pretty sad. I know we've kind of alluded that before, but it's just so true. I mean, granted, we did see Phoenixmon top, but Phoenixmon is a deck that's trying to farm purple more specifically, and that's kind of where it found its niche. Whether it'll continue to see that level of success, I don't know, because Purple with purple hybrids is now doing a couple of different things that it wasn't really doing before. Millenniumon as like a good purple deck is now going to be bottom decking. Like purple now has access to bottom deck. So like that could really screw up Phoenixmon's overall game plan. I think there's less reliant on blocker as a whole. So that's kind of again the niche that Phoenixmon kind of plays into is like it doesn't like to be blocked. Um or it not I had it reversed. It would rather not be blocked, but it has ways to deal with blockers compared to a lot of other colors that or a lot of other red decks. So like I don't exactly know. Green really seems like it's in a tough spot too. Like a lot of those colors, like if it's literally not blue or purple, just seem like they're just sidelined really hardcore. But like I don't exactly know what is going to actually find its way for the time being. I think like right now we're just going to use part A as just the experimental phase to kind of just figure stuff out, and then part B, even though there's like literally almost no events for part B, um that's when a lot of people are going to be doing like more private testing and really solidifying their lists for nationals, which I still got to do all my nationals prep for. I got to find a hotel and book a flight. So I've been really bad about that, but Bandai chose like the worst time to do it. Like why? Why New Year's?
Yeah, but yeah, because I could definitely agree with that statement about the part A and the part B. Because the way I see it is, people are going to be testing during the part A to see, look, this is what my deck is missing, or this is what my deck is lacking, so to say. And if any of those pieces they need come out in the part B, which is that side set, then it's gonna be like, oh, that's exactly what I need. So therefore, I should be doing better now that I have the missing components.
Yeah, cuz like one of the big examples is like I have been playing Mirage, and I can say that the scramble cards are like actually insanely important for Mirage because it is a stack based deck, and the way that Bandai designs those staples is they're supposedly taking an aspect of the game that they really didn't like, and they're basically fixing in quotation marks fixing the game with cards that help that design issue. So the design issue that the scramble cards are fulfilling is basically a comeback mechanic. Yes, you could use them to kind of like speed through your evolutions a little bit, but the main intended use is the delay ability to be able to, okay, you deleted my big Digimon? That felt really bad. Cool, here's a rookie, and now let's do it all over again. It's supposed to be a comeback mechanic to get you back into the game, and obviously players are abusing it in ways that Bandai probably wasn't exactly anticipating. Shocker, I know, right? Um, Card games do it all the time, but yeah, they're just abusing the set or like the cards in ways that Bandai isn't intended, and that's like making the cards excel even further.
Yeah, because I know the scramble cards, like the other really big thing too is it gives you that reduced evo cost right away. Because I'm pretty sure they still is it still a two cost to play, and then what's the play or evo cost reduction for that?
It's two to play, three reduced. So essentially, you're evoing for two if you had an evo cost of three. So it's a -1 in terms of memory usage.
Yeah, it's like especially like if Mirage is able to use the blue scramble, so to say, like if you've like let's say if you're at zero with a level 5 and you're able to play that scramble card to go into the I don't know Mirage, or maybe that's a bad example, I don't know, but either way, just getting to reduce your evo cost of your level 5, like uh fives and up, a lot sooner than you normally would have done with the normal delay cards, kind of makes any aggro deck seem really good with those new scramble cards.
Yeah, because it's way less telegraphed in terms of when you could explode. Because, like, as a Mirage, I just now, because of the scramble cards, I only need one training card on the field. Before, it would be nice if I had two. Because now I obviously my best play line is Rookie and Raising, move out, crack memory boost slash training card, Digivolve for basically 0 into level 4. Level 4 now will gain me memory, ideally. And then now I could scramble to Evo into the level 5 for effectively 2. And the level 5, ideally, again, is going to be gaining me memory somewhere else. So now I'm evoing into my level 5 for 1, and then I could go into my level 6 for even, like, just less. And that's the scary part. And then you delete my Digimon, and I could do it all over again. Like, that's the extra insane part. And it's not literally just Mirage. Like, Mirage is obviously just one of the case uses that's able to do it. Like, a lot of purple decks are going to abuse the ever living crap out of the purple scramble for the same reasoning. It's like, okay, it allows decks to move faster and have a potential comeback to where it's just like, okay, cool. You deleted my big thing after I did my 4 checks. That's great. Here's my rookie. Let me do it all over again. Granted, it is at the start of your turn, I believe. And
Yeah,
you need
therefore it gives them summoning sickness.
yeah, so your Digimon would have summoning sickness, but like if the effects are able to out the opponent's field, like it creates this really awkward like game of like chicken and sub chicken where it's like, cool, I'm gonna move out and I'm not gonna get punished because you can't build your sub chicken, because I digivolved and I built my sub chicken that way. Because originally, like way back when in BT5, I labeled it as the game of chicken, where it's like who moves out first kind of loses because the damage output wasn't that high, but the removal was high enough to where it's just like, okay, you move out, you do your thing, and then I kill you. And that problem's been only getting, in quotation marks, worse. And now that we have scramble cards, it kind of goes back to chicken, where you need to out Omega essentially twice. Once on your turn, once on the opponent's turn. Otherwise, you're going to get absolutely bodied by a lot of stack-based decks that can abuse them.
Yeah,
So,
I know the Leviamon's gonna be probably eating good if they're playing against any deck that uses those scramble cards. Like, oh, I deleted your big guy,
well, they
and now
have to
you're
have
gonna
it set up. That's the big problem.
yeah, yeah,
Is
if they get it set up.
yeah. Because the big thing is like Leviamon, their option is too expensive to set up now. So like that's why a lot of Leviamon decks started reducing it, is because they can't reasonably say, I'm going to spend 8 memory to just kill your dude. Like it's sometimes not efficient enough, especially if you know that the opponent isn't going to trigger it for you, to free play out that Leviamon, and then it's up to you to be able to do it yourself. And sometimes that's a little bit harder depending on how the flow of the game goes. But I do think like there are still a lot of like really like I don't think Lord Knight is going to be as like prominent as people think it's going to be, because Japan right now is coming out with answers, and this is the time where we should look at what Japan's doing in terms of answers and be like, okay, if Lord Knight was a problem and it's not anymore, what happened? And like as Japan is developing, that's kind of where we're taking notes, and a lot of the good players are going to be obviously figuring out counters to some of those stronger decks, and that's going to impact the decks that they're going to take. So I think like Leviamon, as you kind of just said, that's a perfect deck to counter Lord Nightmon. It's literally doing almost the exact same stuff, but the big difference is, one, you actually have a security option, so if they hit that stray security option, they are just boned, and two, you basically are doing the exact same thing. So they go up into Lord Nightmon, don't kill you. You go up into Leviamon, kill their Digimon, and now they're gonna have to spend at least 2 turns to rebuild. Meanwhile, you're already beating them in the face. Um, so like I think there is gonna be a really interesting meta dynamic centered around basically the good purple decks and the good blue decks, with maybe a good black or red deck in the mix. And by red I mean Ancient, because oh boy, Ancient just got so much better.
Yeah, because of the new Agunimon, correct?
Not only the new Agunimon, but the Gaiosmon. So, like, before, there was kind of a small argument to be made on how you could build red hybrids or ancient, but, like, now I actually think, like, the best de facto way is just, you know, just build it more ancient focused, because you move out of raising, you'll do at least 3 checks as early as turn 2, and then you are going to, off of your deletion, set up your tamer again, and potentially set up your raising again, on top of the fact that if you gain enough memory on that deletion, then you could play something like a Gigasmon, and Gigasmon is a hybrid level 4 on play rush. So it's just like, oh yeah, okay, so that's what's being now played off of the old ancient. If you're just going for that, otherwise, if you're going for new ancient, you're just taking the 2 checks and recycling the most important cards to basically keep doing it over and over again. And the opponent literally will die in like 3 turns because of the amount of pressure you could apply. The only weakness is blockers kind of suck. I mean, the deck has piercing, so it could at least kind of bypass that a little bit. Um, if you can't remove their Digimon, that also kind of sucks, because then they still can, just do whatever they were doing and ignore what you were doing. And then certain floodgates do kind of suck. Like there's weaknesses to it, is what I'm getting at. It's not like I'm trying to oversell the deck. But I do think, like, literally because of the new red hybrid support, it does make ancient more viable than it's been, even if it's not like an insane amount of cards. Even just red hybrid seems like it's pretty good, just because the new emperor is actually pretty solid.
Yeah, because I mean, we have been seeing a red hybrid popping up a little bit towards the end of EX7 and everything. Not necessarily, red hybrid, so to say, but like, the red ancient Greymon, which I think it's had what, like 4 tops now, which
Four or
has been
five,
so
yeah.
far, which has so far been the most for any other rogue deck, so to say.
Yeah, it's
Like, it's
proving
been
to
recently doing
be
it.
yeah, it's proving to be not as rogue as we're anticipating, and especially now that we know the deck is getting better. Like, that's one where I probably wouldn't write it off, and that's a deck that could easily squeeze into where the meta is going to be formed around, because of what the deck can do. So it's looking like it'll be, from a meta perspective, it's going to be interesting, just because of how tight the meta decks are currently, and the very little amount of wiggle room in terms of error, build, matchups, and everything else that you actually are like have to have in order for your deck to be competitive. Like, there's very little room for error, and you're gonna have to, like, we're entering a speed format, like, it feels like, where you really need the speed to keep up, otherwise you're just gonna get blown out.
No, that's perfectly fair to say, because if you think about it, I mean, Imperial, Ancient, Lore Knights, like there's a lot of decks out there that seem like they could build their boards really fast. Now, especially.
Yeah, and Purple Hybrids is adopting some AG stuff, just to be able to get AG out, and then that's a tamer that they're able to reuse over and over again, because MindLink is broken like that. So, like, even Purple Hybrids is able to build relatively quickly, like quicker now than it's ever done before.
Right. Because I know like Black was kind of using that idea of using those tamers to spit them back out, but I think a lot of the purple hybrid stuff, they have ways to play out their tamers once they're deleted again, especially in the if you look at BT7, those purple hybrids even there were also doing that same idea of playing the tamers back out once they were deleted.
Yeah, I think there's gonna be a lot of like really good purple and blue decks, and unfortunately, I don't think there's a counter really to any of them. Like, right now, they're kind of countering each other, where it's just like, if you're not blue, you're purple, and if you're not purple, you're blue. And that's not
Yeah,
saying all purple and blue decks are good. It's just the good ones of the purple and blue are very much excelling over everything else in the entire game, which I think is like both sad and hilarious at the same time. Mostly sad.
yeah.
It just goes to show how good printing memory is. Free memory, who would have thought would have been good?
Yeah, because I know like one of the decks I was playing early on in what is it, BT17 was the Dex Daruga deck and everything, and I wanted to play more black base with that, but eventually I have to stop playing it because black base just can't keep up with all the things everyone else is able to do. And I've kind of had in the back burners like, oh well, maybe I should play purple because that Lugamon is able to do so much, like just raise and get a free AG out.
And a free memory. Yeah. Like that's why the way I described it is like black base you are more anti-meta and you have more protections and answers than purple, but purple you have a lot more speed and power. So that's the trade-off, and it seems like based on the data that we've gathered so far, more people are finding success with the purple, even though it is really close. But more people are finding success with speed and power versus protection and defense. So I know we kind of talked a lot about 2.0. So probably next week we'll try to come up with a different topic because 2.0 right now is just it's in such an interesting position, not only from a meta perspective, but the market perspective, and just a lot of the hotness and attention is on 2.0. So, but I know it could get a little tiresome. So, any closing thoughts, Jay Stewart, on 2.0?
Yeah, the only thing I could really say with the whole 2.0, because I mean, it is going to be a talking point for a little bit still. Like, it's possible we might even talk about it again later. But the way I see it is, well, that's because 2.0 is our Nats and everything. And I'm not able to go to Nats, but I know you are. So, and I know there's going to be players on my locals who are going to be like, oh, I need help practicing for Nats and everything. And there's going to be a lot of like, technically speaking, there's like only what, like three actual regionals, two online and one in person. Other than that, there's nothing else for 2.0, so to say, of getting any kind of representation outside of that Telnats. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be trying to probably even play these webcam events, the Gaia Force, the what did you say was Eagles
Yeah,
something?
Eagle's Nest.
Yeah, and there's going to be people who are going to probably even try out like these weird, wacky kind of things or combos for their decks because they're like, well, I have no other real way to try and do that. Like everyone's going to be like, what am I trying to say here?
No,
Sorry.
we're all going to be practicing in whatever capacity that we can because Bandai, I mean, rightfully so, they don't hold a lot of events in November and December just because those are holiday months and they know that not a lot of people are going to be attending because their focus is generally going to be somewhere else.
Yeah, and I can't blame them with that at all because, oh, Jesus, sorry. Because I know even at my locals during Halloween, there was only four of us that were playing because, everyone else is probably out with their kids doing trick or treating and stuff too.
Yeah. So I'm curious to hear your perspective on after like playing your locals with 2.0, hearing your perspective on uh, what's been going on in your neck of the neighborhood. As far as me and my neck of the neighborhood, I know that my locals is like it's like half casual, half competitive. It's like okay, the competitive decks are usually the ones that are going to be winning. Um, and the casual ones, while they're fun to play and play against, like it kind of is like I would rather kind of just I don't like it's weird. In terms of like the half casual, half competitive side of things. Cause like I feel bad for beating on them whenever I bring a competitive deck, but at the same time I also want to try to win and get data for how to improve my deck. So I don't know. But as far as like my overall thoughts on how I like this format so far, based on my experience with the store regional, I still don't like this format. I the game really is just needs one ban and restriction list, and unfortunately, the way it seems like things are going, we'll get one after Nats like we always do, and that's hopefully going to be the turning point on my opinions and thoughts on the game actually getting to be better and in a good state And some people will argue that, yeah, the game's already in a good state. You just can't see it. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, sure, you could think that. You're allowed to be entitled to your own opinions, but mine is I don't like the current state of the game. Um, Hopefully, I find a fun deck. Like I was talking with my team, and they were just like, maybe you just need to find a fun deck, like a pet deck, and really just work on it. And maybe that is all I need. But at the same time, I know how sweaty and tight this format is. And I don't know if I'm excited or nervous or just bored shitless because we've been playing the same stuff for at least a half year, if not a year now. So I'm just tired and I want good change. That's all I want.
No, and you're perfectly fair in that because I mean, I will say this definitely isn't the worst format we've ever had because I know playing around EX01 slash BT7 when hybrids first really came out during that time period because I think you even like I remember watching one of your videos early like during that time period. I think you were like saying the data was like 60% was blue hybrid for that alone, and the next best X was yellow hybrid with the Jet Sylphie.
Yeah,
And I
we've
don't
definitely been in worse formats.
I don't ever want to go back to a format like that. And it's like kind of nerve wracking anytime a format gets anywhere narrow like that, so to say.
Like right now, we're not that narrow, but like usually what happens is when like one or two decks cement themselves as the actual best deck of the format, we it's easier to be able to build around them versus having like eight decks that we actually need to focus around on all times, which really starts limiting the overall decks that are used to those eight because usually that's enough of a variety to be able to cover every base in terms of your control, aggro, mid range, whatever, combo, whatever. Um, so, and like right now, I guess it's literally just more of the fact that I hate the amount of memory gain that we have, cheating on the fundamental resource of the game, and then I'm just bored shitless because I've been seeing the same decks for months now. So I'm just like, yep, that deck does that. Okay. What am I able to build? Can I build anything fun? No, because these decks shut it out. So like it's just the conundrum of like what am I actually supposed to do? And it's becoming more frustrating than exciting. At least in my perspective. So, anyone in chat or anyone in the comments, as we kind of wrap things up, feel free to tell us what your thoughts about 2.0 in terms of the meta to come and what you've experienced so far down in the comments. I do tend to read them, so, and I try to engage. I know I have to be like restricted on how much I engage because sometimes I feel like I could say the wrong thing on accident and then oops, now people hate me, which has happened before. So that's kind of all I have. Any final thoughts before we actually wrap this up, Jay Stewart?
The only thing I can say is just try to have fun with your locals of testing and try to help out any players that are going to Nats and everything too. Because I know I've told the people in my area that are going to Nats like I've told them like, hey, if you need something, I typically get playsets of everything. So hit me up if you need something and everything. Like because normally I would never have done this when I was playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't know how it is like for the other TCGs, but Digimon has always, since I've joined, always been like one of the great community supporting, so to say.
Yeah, I do think that the community for Digimon is actually pretty good. I will agree with that. And yeah, just I guess just find what fun you can is all I really have to say. I know everyone's different and everyone takes things differently, so I'm trying not to be as doomer as I am, and hopefully, I'm just holding out that things for me personally get better in terms of my thoughts coming to terms with where the current state of the game is. Um, so, on that note, I think it is a good place to stop. So, thank you everyone for listening, especially all the way, to the end. And I want to, at this time, if you want to do all the social media doobly doos to make sure that the podcast is shared, so that way we could get it to spread so more people could watch and enjoy it too, get some insight, whatever, that would be much appreciated. And hopefully, we will see all of you back next time.